The Dallas Cowboys overhauled their offensive line in one draft, but how much can we expect from these three rookies in their first season? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. And you're giving me the smirk because I just had like some crowns and a root canal done. So I'm like a little Novocaine up. It's okay. We'll get through the show. But Landon, how you doing today, sir?
Oh man, I'm doing great. This is gonna be fun watching you get through this and making sure your mouth is closed. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. I look, honestly, what I am excited to do is talk about these particular three guys because I do think the Cowboys really hit a home run by being able to secure specifically the two top guys in the draft and being able to really kind of solidify that offensive line. And I'm excited about what it's going to look like in the future.
All right, let's start with Tyler Smith. Tyler Guyton. Man, how many times am I going to make that? And even on the graphic, I wrote Tyler Smith, not Tyler Guyton. So it's whatever. Talk to me about Tyler Guyton. Now that we know that he's going to be a Dallas Cowboy, how do you think he fits onto this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think he fits as a pure left tackle type. I mean, he's there's no kind of tweener stuff with Guyton. I mean, he's very clearly a tackle just based on the numbers that you see right here. That size, that weight, with good length, big hands. I think we've talked about it before. The issue with Guyton is that he needs more work. He needs more snaps. He needs to find more consistency with his game. I think part of what I was trying to push back on when we talked about him earlier in the kind of draft season was I felt like there was a lot of talk about him being kind of this, big upside player. And I do think that there obviously is upside here, but I also think that he's you see him perform positively on a regular basis. The issue is consistency, right? Is getting a level of consistency where the floor is raised a little bit, right? Because as of right now, I mean, considering where he is as far as trajectory of his career and development as a player, he's still very raw. But at the same time, you see it, you see snaps where he does it right and it looks great. So it's now it's about getting him into a spot, seeing what his work ethic is like and how much he's willing to put into this, because he's going to need to drill his footwork and get consistency there, and that's just going to be about hard work. So I think that he's a guy that just based on the demeanor from again going back to what we talked about, based on the demeanor of the guy that we saw in these interviews, which is not something that we had any kind of insight to previous to this, I feel very confident that this guy is going to get where he needs to go. The question is, how soon does he get there, right? Is it before the season? Is it mid-season? Is it after this season? That's going to be the kind of thing that we're going to be really keeping an eye on as we move forward.
So if you're not familiar, Tyler Guyton played right tackle at Oklahoma because Dylan Gabriel, their quarterback, was left-handed. How do you think the transition is going to go for him being a right tackle in college to a left tackle in the NFL?
Yeah, it could be tough, right? And I think, this is one area where his lack of experience may kind of help him a little bit, because he's not a guy who's been playing right tackle for 4 years, right? He has played left tackle before. He even talked about in his interview that he probably feels more comfortable at left tackle. Again, we're taking him at his word, but I think that the combination of the fact that he doesn't have some huge number of snaps all in one other position, that he's still kind of young enough in his career that swapping shouldn't be too bad. And again, the fact that he has experience playing left tackle really helps you out here. So I think it should be okay. I mean, honestly, like this is something that you normally kind of on paper would worry about, right? A kind of raw prospect switching sides. But I think it's again, it goes back to who this kid seems to be as a person and the fact that he has some experience playing on the left side. He even said that he felt more comfortable there. That kind of gives you some positive feeling that this isn't going to be such a steep learning curve for him.
All right, I've got a couple questions for you. The first one is, did you have a comp for him when you were watching him?
No, I mean, I'm not usually a comp guy so much. Like unless someone specifically stands out to me. No, because I do think that his technique is going to change a little bit. So I don't really have anyone specifically.
Just in the face, he reminds me, in the body style, looks a little bit like Alex Barron, who I can't
Oh,
stop thinking
he
about.
does look like Alex Barron in the face for sure.
Which, I mean, listen, Alex Barron was a first round pick who got drafted really, really high because of his athleticism and stuff. But to me, honestly, he reminds me a lot of Colton Miller coming out of UCLA, where Colton Miller was this 6'8", 315-pound offensive tackle who was an athlete, right? Like he was a really, really good athlete that you were hoping would put things together. Now, I actually think Tyler Guyton's tape is better than what Colton Miller's was coming out of UCLA. But Miller really had to fight and scrap those first 2 years with the Raiders before he kind of turned into a good player. Now he's one of the better left tackles in the NFL. I'm hoping that's the trajectory for Tyler Guyton. Like, take your lumps the first year or two, survive that, and then the rest is upside, because I could see a similar path for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news here is that, you know, it's about consistency. It's not about like having to completely change his technique or, you know, having to try to find, you know, some lower body flexibility or find some strength. He has a lot of the natural elements that you want in a left tackle that you're not going to have to worry about. Like he's got good flexibility. He can really sit in his seat. Like he's got good arm length and great feet, like really, really quick feet for a guy that size. So those are the positive things that you know, obviously it's not just that he is an athlete, right? That he is comfortable moving in the way that he needs to move to play as a tackle, right? He's not just a guy that has that is a good athlete that has the size recommend. Like for the job that he's being asked to do, he moves well in his seat. He gets away off the line of scrimmage well. So I think sometimes we see these athletes and their game doesn't show the athleticism. His game, like you could see the athleticism. You could see
it translates.
it translates, right? So that's the positive part, that, you know, you're not just getting an athlete. He clearly has some football skills as well. It's, you know, if anything, it's getting him to do it 9 times out of 10 instead of 5, 6 times.
Yeah. So what are your expectations for him as a rookie?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see where the trajectory is, right? Like I think the expectation is that they'll probably throw him out there at left tackle and that he's probably going to take some lumps early, you know, and whether those lumps are only in training camp or they bleed into the regular season. You know, look, I imagine that he is going to have some up and down play early in the regular season, no matter how good the trajectory is, right? Just because he's a rookie left tackle, you know, playing in the NFL. But I think that his athleticism is going to help him be able to recover and get out of bad situations. He's going to be able to kind of mitigate a lot of the kind of disaster stuff if he can try to find a way to just find some consistency in his technique. Look, I mean, he could get consistent in his technique and be kind of a better technician and still get his butt kicked a lot in the NFL because it's the NFL, right?
The NFL,
so
yeah,
I do think that if he's able to find just some consistency in his technique, some I want his hand strikes to look the same, you know, like 7 times in a row. And if he can get that kind of consistency, I think it's going to raise the floor. It's going to mitigate some of the issues that you see. And I think he's going to allow his athleticism to kind of shine a little bit. And, you know, I think he'll hold out. I think he'll be fine. I think the expectation should be, you'd hope that by the middle of the season, he's a better than average starting left tackle if things go well. And then the low end of it would be, he gets to the season and he still isn't quite there yet. So I think somewhere in that range of, by midseason becoming one of the better half of the tackles in the NFL, or, potentially starting the entire whole season and never quite getting to better than replacement level.
All right, let's talk about Cooper Beebe, who the Cowboys took with the third round pick that they had. What's his role going to be on this offense? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You guys have already talked about this before, but there's just so much good stuff in this game that we got to tell you about. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more that you win, the more awesome prizes that you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and these hilarious emojis for taunting friends. It's so much fun. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton of them include their own unique mini games. And there's also these new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Are you having to turn down the volume because of all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's discuss our favorite pick in this draft, Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. First of all, what did you see from him on tape?
I mean, you just talked about, all the screaming that's going on Fox and ESPN. I think I was doing a lot of screaming watching his tape. I loved it, man. He's just such a fun player to watch, and he's just one of these guys that, if his arms were, half an inch longer, or maybe, a whole inch or longer, or if he was, a half an inch taller, right? Like, this guy would be a first round pick. You just watch his tape, and he's just putting people on the ground. Like, whether it's, in run blocking or in pass, he loves to finish with folks on the ground. The demeanor is elite. Right, like the play style is elite. He's a good mover. I mean, I think the numbers and the agility speed grades that you were looking at right now, if you're watching YouTube, you can see that he moves well for a guy that's 320 plus pounds, running basically a 5 flat 40, and you see that on tape, right? You see him get out in front on pulls. I mean, he's playing guard mostly when you're watching him, but you see him getting out on pulls and getting out in space, and he's able to hit targets. And again, like, it's really, really not fun for the second level and third level guys that have to run into the Cooper Beebe on a pull, right? He's just a very physical, tough guy. His quickness is good, but not great, but it certainly is good enough for a guy that's 320 pounds. I think the thing that really makes me excited is that when you look at his list of kind of, negatives or weaknesses or whatnot, it really feels like they match up with a lot of the things that are going to be mitigated with the move inside the center, right? Like, he's got short arms. Some of the notes that we've seen, like, this is from Brandon Thorne, right? Short arms shrink his margin of error with strike timing and hand placement, limiting his ability to press and widen defenders when they get inside his frame on the edges. If you're a center, you don't have to worry about that as much. You're not getting guys in on your edges as much unless you've got 3 1-on-1s lined up across the front. And even then, like, the kind of guys that beat Cooper one-on-one in pass rush situations are interior defensive linemen with a lot of length, right? And I just think it's going to be difficult for teams to kind of isolate Cooper in those situations without, putting them in harm's way of being double teamed by Tyler Smith and or Zach Martin. So it's a lot of things that make me excited about Cooper Beebe, but I think most of all, it's the combination of his skill set with his weaknesses and how both his strengths and will be accentuated and his weaknesses will be minimized with a move inside to center. And I'm really excited to see exactly what kind of center he will be.
And if you're watching with us on YouTube right now, you can see some of the advanced stats courtesy of Pro Football Focus. Pass block grade 96th percentile, true pass set grade 98th percentile, no play action grade 97th percentile, gap run grade only 89th percentile. I mean, come on, Cooper. And then a zone run grade of 90th percentile. Like, he just, everything he does, he excels at. My comp for him was actually somebody that I liked a little bit last year, who I know the Cowboys liked, was Steve Avila, the tackle / guard / now center with the Rams, who the Cowboys at least thought about drafting in round 1. Avila, I don't remember. Is it Avila? We're going to call him Avila. Had 33-inch arms, which is an inch and a half longer than Beebe, but it's also that 6'3" frame, 330 pounds, and just a people mover.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of compact frame that that is built on athleticism, right? Like, I mean, you just don't see too many guys that are squatty and big that have the kind of movement skills that these guys do, right? And that's
which
why
is great for center, though. Like,
that's exactly what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is now you've got like a real fire plug center guy who is stout, right? He's not going to get pushed back into Dak's lap. He's going to be able to move some folks, but he's also not like 6'5", right? So Dak's not going to have a problem kind of seeing over the top of the line and seeing windows in the middle of the field. So yeah, I mean, again, I think that he's not, he's not Frederick in that sense that like he's got a different kind of game to him, but it's good to have another stout center in the middle of this line. Yes, I think that's so something nice. That I like Biadasz, but I think that was something that was missing. Was Biadasz is just he's maybe a 310 guy, right? And he's probably 6'4", and so it's a little stretched out too. So having kind of a squattier, stouter center to me really can kind of solidify that front three, especially when you plug. I mean, it's ridiculous that we're plugging this guy in between Tyler Smith and Zach Martin. Like, that's just unfair for a lot of folks, but I'm excited to see it.
Well, and that was going to be my next question. Do you think he will start or at least open the year as their starting center?
Yeah, I mean, I would have a hard time believing he wouldn't. I like, I like that the Cowboys like Brock Hoffman and they're happy about it. I even have, some love for TJ Bass. I mean, I think that those guys are good players, but this guy is this is a really great fit. And
I think this is a good thing for TJ Bass, to be honest, because now he doesn't have to focus on being the backup center. Now we can just be the backup guard, right? Yeah. And try to maybe be the heir apparent to Zach Martin at right guard. Like, I actually think this is a very good thing for TJ Bass.
Yeah, I think it kind of just slots everybody into their spots really nicely. And even if TJ Bass, like, maybe you still consider think about working him in at center a little bit, and then you slide Beebe out to guard if you want to replace Martin, and then see who can play center for you. But yeah, it just gives the Cowboys a ton of options. But it also gives the Cowboys a very clear upgrade on the position right away.
As you were talking, I went to Googled TJ Bass's name to see what the T stands for in TJ. I thought it was going to be Tyler, because why wouldn't it be Tyler for this team? It's Travis. So What a disappointment. But hey, we have had success with Travis's before, right?
That's right. So Travis's, Tyler's, we'll take them all. And Zach's, you got any Zach's? We'll we'll take some Zach's as well.
So do you think Cooper Beebe's long-term position in the NFL is center, or is that just where he's playing now because the Cowboys have a need there? Like, where do you actually think his best spot will be in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if center was his best spot, because I just think he's a cerebral guy. It's a lot of what makes JPJ so appealing to me, right? Is that his body type is kind of rare now. Like, you just don't see a ton of these bigger centers, which is, I think, something that you should. It's a lot of it is because there are so many skilled but yet slightly undersized offensive linemen that, literally you can't play anywhere else in the NFL except for center, right? So they throw these guys that can't quite make it to 300 pounds, but are the best technicians in all of offensive line football at center, because they can do the job at 300 pounds, but only because they're technicians. It's the old, like, what's the old scouting thing? If you've got two guys who can run to first base, one with perfect form and one with imperfect form, which one do you take? Right? You take the one with imperfect form, because if you can tweak it a little bit, he'll end up being faster. I think it's similar with Cooper Beebe in the sense that you're working with a lot of size. So if you could get him up to speed to kind of be a technician at center the way he is at guard, you may have kind of a unique animal there, and that may make him kind of a special center as opposed to just a very good plus guard guy.
Well, and the arm length is delegated a little bit, right? Because you don't need it as much at guard as you need it, or sorry, at center as you need it at guard.
Yeah.
I did find this interesting. I don't know how much it matters, but like Jackson Powers Johnson had much longer arms than Cooper Beebe, but their wingspan was the same. So again, I don't know how much that matters when it comes to center. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but he has short arms, but he's not necessarily a narrow body player either.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you see these guys that have really, like, he had something like Cooper did, if I'm not mistaken, like 75% percentile wingspan, but was like somewhere in the 30s as far as arm length, which is like,
yeah, it's I mean, his arm length, if you're looking with us on YouTube right now, it's 31.5 inches. I mean, that is small, but when you look at it at center, it's actually pretty average, which
it's actually above average, I think.
Yeah,
if you look at it. So
yeah, very interesting.
It makes sense. And again, like, I think, like I said, if this guy had an inch and a half longer arms, he would be a first round guard. Like, he would. Like, you watch his tape, the way he's played.
He's going ahead of Frazier.
Since All-American twice. Like, I mean, he's a positive player. Probably the best offensive lineman ever to play in Kansas State. Like, I mean, it's that better kind of player. He's got a really good resume. It's just there are some things here and there that prevent him from being maybe an elite tier guard that I think aren't going to be a problem at center, and it will accentuate all his positives. I mean, again, I'm trying to temper my expectations, but I have very strong excitement for seeing Cooper Beebe at guard.
All right, these aren't the only two offensive linemen that the Cowboys drafted in 2024. They've also taken somebody late on day 3 who I know I'm really excited about. We will get to him next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA. Unfortunately, my Lakers are out. In the NHL, I'm not going to watch the NBA playoffs anymore. It's done. But baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet an automatic win with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are discussing the 3 offensive linemen that the Cowboys selected in 2024. And let's get to Nathan Thomas, who I like this tape quite a bit. What did you think?
First of all, it's hard to find his tape.
Yeah.
Like Louisiana doesn't exactly have a lot of it out there. So tracking it down was quite an exercise in itself. But I will say that this is a guy who has kind of an interesting pathway, right? He was a tight end in high school, right? At a kind of, old school triple option, wing T type offense, right? So he was a tight end, but he was a blocking tight end. Like, he was basically there to knock people down. He was not a very super highly recruited guy. He had a couple of offers coming out of college and then ended up at Louisiana. And when you're at the University of Louisiana and you've got a 6'5", 330-pound guy, you're putting him at left tackle because he's the biggest athlete you've got on the team, right? And you see him out there, and it's pretty clear that, even against the level of competition that he's playing, that tackle is probably not his position, right?
It's clear as day it's not his position.
Yeah, he has some good movement skills, but he's certainly not like the great mirror athlete that you want to see in some of these tackles. He has a lot of the same kind of sloppy technique stuff that you see with Guyton, except I think that the downside here is even further, right? Like Guyton, you're seeing good positive play, I would say most of the time, and then the occasional lapse, right? Whereas Thomas, it's kind of, he's just getting the job done at times, right? Like you see him doing kind of the ultimate sin stuff of offensive line. You see him waist bending, reaching. He doesn't necessarily always trust his feet, and that ultimately leads him to trying to reach and grab guys. He's another guy who doesn't have and this is also part of the issue why he wouldn't be a tackle, right? He doesn't have the kind of length that allows him to get away with bad technique and then be able to recover, or he's not the kind of guy that when he gets his hands on you, it's over, right? Like because of his length, I think. I think the reasons that you want him moving inside the guard are because it sort of mitigates some of the weaknesses that he has, right? Like some of the foot quickness stuff. It accentuates the positive that he has. Like when this guy gets his hands on you, and by the way, if you want, can you put that graphic back up one more time? Look at his hand size. He has almost 11-inch hands. He has 10.75-inch hands, right? And when he gets his hands on you and he grips you inside, that's when you're in trouble, right? And that's why I think a move inside the guard where he can keep his hand placement, he can work on that a little bit. He doesn't have to reach as far to kind of get hands on people. I think it just will allow him to play a little bit more upright without bending at the waist in order to strike guys in the middle. And on top of that, I think, again, we talk about one of the most important things you can learn, right, is how to trip, clip, and hold, right? And how to do it without getting away. Once this guy figures out how to get his hands inside and angle the holding away from referees, I think he's going to be a really good body mover inside as a guard, and as someone who can just physically move people, because he does have that kind of requisite strength. That athleticism is functional, but I think it's not functional for a tackle. It's functional for a guard who, again, even at guard, he's going to need some seasoning. He's probably still a year away from needing to be on the field.
The good news is that Louisiana actually has a pretty good track record with offensive linemen in recent years. So go back to 2020. Robert Hunt and Kevin Dotson were both mid-round picks. Those guys both got monster contracts this offseason because they're powerful guards. 2021, they had Elijah Mitchell. In 2022, they had Osiris Torrance, who eventually transferred to Florida, who we know the Cowboys liked a little bit. Like, if you're going to look for like a school that's actually producing NFL offensive linemen and good ones, it's somehow Louisiana. Their offensive line coach must be really good down there, because all of these guys play with power. And you can see that when you watch his tape. Like, he plays really, really strong. And if you're looking at the PFF grades with us on YouTube right now, all the pass blocking grade stuff is all whatever. It's not great. 49th percentile pass block grade, 21st percentile true pass set grade, 51st percentile no play action grade. But I wondered, if I'm betting, here's what got the Cowboys' attention. 86th percentile gap run grade, playing as a left tackle. I've got to assume they believe kicking him inside the guard is going to make him an even better run blocker. And that's why I'm so interested in him.
Yeah, agreed. I think he has the kind of athleticism that if you're needing him to get out on the move and to hit a target, that's fine. But I think it's a different kind of athleticism to be a good mirror athlete, right? You need like a explosive agility. I don't know that that's his game. But if you need him to comfortably get out of his stance, wrap around an offensive line, and hit a moving target, I think he has that kind of athleticism. I think he can do that. So I guess another guy where, there's several different types of guards, tackles, swing guys, right? There's the Jordan Morgans of the world that are tackles that, just don't quite have the arm length, right? Oh, that you want. Or you have these guys who are the true kind of like, this guy's like got a guard body, but tackle length, right? Like, so, and you kind of have to figure out where you're going to put this guy, which side of the line is he going to fall on? I think, based on the tape that we've seen, he needs to start at guard. And then if things develop, maybe he could be a game day swing guard tackle guy.
I'm hoping he can spend a year in the practice squad, kind of just getting up to
I
the
agree.
speed of the NFL. When you draft a guy this late, usually you can't sneak those guys onto your practice squad. I think he would benefit so much from that, not being forced into action early, learning the offense, and then we'll see in 2025 where he's at. But again, for a late day 3 pick, there is a lot of potential here because you just don't find guys with this much natural power usually this late in the draft. That's all.
Yeah, Planet Theory. Only a couple of these guys available. Find them, develop them. Let's make them into starters.
All right, that is it for today's show. On tomorrow's show, we're going to break down some of the defensive players, including Marshawn Nealon. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.